Trump is trying to say that Native Americans are illegal immigrants.
Multiple reports from Phoenix, Arizona indicate that members of tribal nations are being harassed by immigration officers.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we are diving into a heated and heartbreaking issue that is shaking up the Native American community. The Trump administration is challenging the birthright citizenship of Native Americans, excluding Indians, using an outdated pre-14th Amendment law. And to make matters worse, I.C.E. agents are harassing and detaining Native people under the controversial reinterpretation of citizenship. So who are the true Native Americans and how are people reacting to this? Let's break it all down.
Another thing is, if you're gonna question our birthright citizenship, etc. and shit, don't want this shit to happen, but if anything were to happen, where are you gonna send us? Where are you gonna send us? Because the land that we've always known is the land that we're all currently on. That's all we've been doing. And, I mean, respectfully, you know, others have places to go to, you know, they have family, they have homes, they have other homes. But we, as Native Americans, babes, this the only land that we always known of. And if anything, our reservations are still on this land. So we're still gonna be here, baby. We still gonna be here. Yes.
Trump is trying to say that Native Americans are illegal immigrants. Like they're illegal immigrants, as if they weren't here first. To say that Native Americans are...
Multiple reports from Phoenix, Arizona indicate that members of tribal nations are being harassed by immigration officers. And at least one member of the Navajo Nation was detained and released by ICE. This is a devastating result of racial profiling and a stark reminder of settler colonial violence. To my Indigenous brothers and sisters out there, please stay safe and take care.
As a Canadian, this has really, really, really irked me. This was never really about immigrants, was it? This was never about immigrants. This was about white supremacy. Let's be real. Every nation that has dealt with the effects of colonialism and how that has impacted Native communities should feel outraged at this. Like I've said this so many times before, the last residential school in Canada closed in the 90s. In the 90s. It sickens me that there are Canadians that support this man. It sickens me. We cannot let Polyev win the next election. We just can't.
Donald Trump just signed an executive order which eliminates the White House initiative on advancing educational equity, excellence, and economic opportunity for Native Americans, and strengthening tribal colleges and universities. This means the government will no longer support in addressing the systemic barriers that Native American students face when trying to attain quality education. This includes access to resources, culturally responsive curriculum like Native American history and Native languages, and student support services. The government will no longer support programs and initiatives aimed at improving teaching quality, curriculum relevance, and student outcomes at all grade levels. The government will no longer support in bridging the gap between academic and career success, so workforce development programs are no longer in question. This also includes internships and financial aid opportunities. Tribal colleges and universities will most likely see a huge loss in funding due to the fact that they provide higher education rooted in Native cultures, languages, and traditions. This executive order is in direct violation of tribal sovereignty and self-determination.
In my last video, I commented that I would not be surprised that the next thing he comes after is tribal treaties, and I stand corrected. Now the Trump administration is questioning Native American birthright citizenship in court. What does that mean? Quoting the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States and subject to the jurisdiction thereof, are citizens of the United States or of the state they reside in. The key sentence, subject to jurisdiction thereof, where they are citing the Civil Rights Act of 1866. All persons born in the United States and not subject to any foreign power, excluding Indians, not taxed, are hereby declared to be citizens of the United States. Using Elk versus Wilkins, because members of Indian tribes owe immediate allegiance to their tribes, they are not subject to the jurisdiction of the United States and are not constitutionally entitled to citizenship. So, according to my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, that would mean that if we were to denounce our tribal affiliation, then we would be considered U.S. citizens by the government. And what happens if we theoretically denounce all of our tribal affiliation? There would be no tribes to be recognized. Therefore, treaties would be void, and he could get his hands on tribal protected lands. I will never denounce my tribal affiliation. That is nuts. Let me know what you guys think.
Y'all, they've been lying. Just watch this video. People were already here. Does it make sense to go all the way to this other continent to bring people on a boat when we know that half of your stock is gonna die? I've been really thinking about this. It do not make sense to go all the way to another place to look for slaves when there's already people here. So if they enslaved the people here and the slaves were melanated black, the Native Americans are the black people.
Oh dear, no. Let me help you out here since African history is not taught in North America. There were many expeditions from Africa to the Americas, and the most famous one was executed by Mansa Abu Bakr II, the ruler of the Mali Empire. He believed there was a world beyond the ocean, so he called to his best minds to build a fleet of ships, and he sent 200 ships to look for the new world. There was enough food and water rations to last for 2 years, and he told them, don't come back till you reach the end of the ocean or till you run out of food and water. One ship came back, and the people aboard that ship told Mansa Abu Bakr II that all the other ships went into a river current and they disappeared out of sight, so they decided to come back. Mansa Abu Bakr took that as a sign that there was a land there. So in 1311, Mansa prepared 1,000 ships and put men aboard that ship. He prepared an additional 1,000 ships full of supplies and gold, total of 2,000 ships. On the second expedition, Mansa Abu Bakr II went with his crew, but he never came back. The thing is, there is no written account of his arrival. However, there is significant evidence suggesting that him and his crew did arrive in the Americas. In fact, Christopher Columbus himself wrote, based on the account of the indigenous Americans, they said black-skinned people had come from the southeast in boats trading in gold-tipped spears. The indigenous Americans called this gold spearhead guanine, which is actually an African word, a Mandinkan word which means gold. That was the language that was spoken in the Mali Empire, which is located right here in West Africa. When Africans set out to explore the New World, they didn't go there with the intention to colonize. They already had a lot of gold. Mansa Abu Bakr II went there with sailors, builders, thinkers, artists, traders. I think Mansa Abu Bakr II was vibing with the indigenous Americans that he decided not to come back. Mansa Abu Bakr II had no reason to come back as he trusted his successor, Mansa Musa, which is another good story. In fact, Mansa Musa is the richest person in history and nobody beat his record yet. The magazine described Mansa Musa's wealth as richer than anyone could describe. Another magazine noted wealth incalculable. So yeah, the Malis and the indigenous Americans were vibing, but black people are not native to the Americas.
I saw someone on here talking about how 50 million Native Americans died during colonization, and I actually wanted to go ahead and add on to that. The correct number is 100 million Native Americans were killed during colonization. 100 million. He also shared a fact to kind of help you visualize this amount of people. And what he said is, if you were to kill a Native American every second for an entire year, there would still be a remaining 70 million Native Americans that died. So no, I wasn't surprised when Elon Musk did the Nazi salute, because this country was built on genocide. The US was full of Nazis all along, and it's only just now that people are waking up and starting to see it. knowledge is power. Use your voice. Stay strong. Love you guys.
Let me make something clear about the Navajo Nation, as well as other indigenous nations here on Turtle Island. We are purposely and perpetually kept poor because a dependent Indian is a profitable Indian. It has been and always will be about money, power, and influence. And as Native Americans, we have none of that. This is not a battle of Democrat versus Republican, right versus left. No, this is a battle of us versus them. In order for us to regain our power and influence, we absolutely must become self-sufficient and sustainable. And accomplishing that will come from reestablishing our local economy. But before we get to that point, we have to provide the basic necessities of what we need to thrive and live. And that is food, water, shelter, and security. Not having any of those will be a daily struggle that will hinder your growth and development as a human being and a functioning member of society. Now, how can we achieve that? What can I do? What can you do? What can we do together? For myself, I feel it's blatantly clear that what needs to change is how our tribal government is ran. All these rules, all these restrictions, all these policies, it was purposely designed this way to hinder our growth and progress. And it needs to go. It needs a whole rework and revamp. Try to get a home site lease, try to start a business, try to do anything here on the Navajo Nation, and you're met with rules and restrictions and say, no, you're not allowed to do that. And that's why it needs to go. True change cannot happen from the top, from high-level elections. It has to start down here, then eventually work your way up. As Dene, it's imperative that we start attending our local chapter meetings, planning meetings, CLEP-C meetings to really get a grasp and understand what's going on in our communities. We must make sure that what goes on at these meetings benefits the community as a whole, not just one person or one family. This is where we will start at weeding out corruption. Always follow the money.
Alright, this situation is deeply troubling and highlights a series of systemic issues, legal oversight, and historical injustice that Native Americans have faced for centuries. Let's break this down step by step to fully understand what is happening and why it matters so much, not just to Native communities but to all of us as Americans. First, we need to address the sheer audacity of what is happening here. Native Americans, the original inhabitants of this land, are being harassed, detained, and even deported by I.C.E. agency. Let that sink in for a moment. These are people whose ancestors lived here long before the United States even existed. Now they are being treated as if they are foreigners in their own homeland. How does that make sense? The answer is, it doesn't. The issue stems largely from Executive Order 14049 and the Trump administration's effort to ratify Birthright Citizenship. The administration is relying on a pre-14th Amendment law to argue that Native Americans who aren't part of federally recognized tribes are not guaranteed citizenships. This is an incredibly dangerous reinterpretation of the law because it sets a precedent that citizenship is no longer a birthright for certain groups of people, particularly those who are already marginalized. Let's pause here to reflect on the historical context. Native Americans have always faced attempts to strip them of their identity and autonomy, from forced relocations like the Trail of Tears to the assimilation policy of the 19th to 20th centuries. The federal government has constantly imposed rules about who gets to call themselves native, often through arbitral measures like blood quantum laws or federal recognition. This isn't just a legal battle, it's an existential fight for identity and sovereignty. What is happening here now is a continuation of that long history. By questioning the citizenship of Native people, this administration is essentially saying, you don't belong here unless we say so. That's a profoundly colonial mindset. It ignores the fact that Native peoples were here long before borders, immigration laws, or even the concept of the United States existed. And let's talk about the role of ICE in all of this. The fact that ICE agents are detaining native people should alarm all of us. These agents are supposed to enforce immigration laws, not harass citizens or lawful residents. The problem here is that Trump administration policy have blurred the line so much that even the Native Americans are being targeted. It's a terrifying overreach of power, and it raises questions about how these agencies are being directed. Now let's consider the legal argument being made here. The Trump administration is relying on a pre-14th Amendment law to challenge birthright citizenship. For those who don't know, the 14th Amendment was ratified after the Civil War to ensure that anyone born in the United States is a citizen. It was a direct response to the injustice of slavery, but it also applied to Native Americans eventually. However, this administration is trying to roll back that progress by leaning on outdated laws that were never meant to redefine model citizenship. This isn't just a legal technicality, it's a fundamental question about what it means to be an American. If native people, the original inhabitants of this land, can have their citizenship questioned, then who is next? This could open the door to challenging the citizenship of other groups, especially those who have historically been marginalized. But beyond the legal argument, there is a larger question here. Who are the true Native Americans? The government has long used federal recognition as a way to control and divide Native communities. If your tribe isn't federally recognized, you lose out on certain rights and protection. But who gets to decide which tribes are legitimate? And why should the government have the power in the first place? Many native people argue that these systems are inherently flawed because they are based on colonial frameworks. For centuries, native identity has been defined not by individual peoples themselves, but by outsiders. Often with the devastating consequences, this latest attack on birthright citizenship is just another example of that. Now let's talk about the human impact of all this. Imagine being detained by ICE agents, questioned about your right to be in the country where your ancestors have lived for thousands of years. Imagine having to prove your identity and citizenship even though your family's history is tied to the very land you are standing on. That is the reality of many Native Americans right now. And it's not just individuals who are affected. Entire communities are living in fear. Families are being torn apart, and the cultural fabric of these communities is under threat. This isn't just a legal or political issue, it's a humanitarian crisis. So how people reacting to all this? There has been widespread outrage, especially among native communities and their allies. Protests are happening across the country, and activists are calling for immediate action to protect native rights. Social media is full of voices speaking out against this policy, highlighting the hypocrisy and injustice of what is happening. At the same time, there are those who support the Trump administration action. Some argue that this is about enforcing immigration laws and protecting national borders. But let's be clear, this isn't about immigration. Native Americans aren't immigrants. They are the original inhabitants of this land. Framing this as an immigration issue is not only misleading but also deeply disrespectful to native history and sovereignty. So where do we go from here? First, we need to amplify the voices of native communities. Their stories, struggles, and perspectives must be at the center of this conversation. Second, we need to hold our leaders accountable. Policies like Executive Order 14049 are not just harmful, they are constitutional and moral wrong. We must demand better from our government. Finally, we need to recognize that this fight is about more than just Native Americans. It's about all of us. If we allow the government to strip away the rights of our one group, we are setting a dangerous precedent that could affect everyone. This is a fight for justice, equality, and the very principle that this country is supposed to stand for. In conclusion, the harassment and detainment of Native Americans by us, coupled with the Trump administration attack on birthright citizenship, is a sobering reminder of the work we need to do to achieve true equality and justice. This isn't just a native issue, it's an American issue, and it's up to all of us to stand up, speak out, and demand change. What do you think about all of this? Share your thoughts in the comments, and let's keep this conversation going. Thank you for watching, and let's continue this conversation in the comments below. Let us share our thoughts and perspectives with one another. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to stay updated on this story and more. I will see you in the next video.